Why do you hold yourself to a standard you would never demand of others? Have you ever finished a project, achieved a goal, and felt not joy, but a fleeting moment of relief before the next wave of anxiety hits? What is that relentless voice in your head that whispers, "It's good, but it's not perfect"? What ghost are you trying to appease with your constant effort? Society sells perfectionism as a virtue, a humble brag in a job interview. My biggest weakness? I just care too much. But this is a dangerous lie. Perfectionism isn't a badge of honor, it's a cage. A beautiful, gilded cage you may have built for yourself, but a cage nonetheless. It promises excellence, but delivers anxiety. It promises control, but delivers paralysis. And today, we're not just going to inspect the bars of that cage. We're going to find out who handed you the blueprints. To understand the architecture of this internal prison, we must turn to one of the original cartographers of the mind, Sigmund Freud. While many of his ideas have been debated and revised, his fundamental map of our inner world offers a profoundly powerful lens to understand this very specific, very modern struggle. Freud proposed that our psyche is not a single, unified thing, but a dynamic, often conflicted territory. A battleground between three core forces, the id, the ego, and the superego. And it's within that last component, the superego, that the ghost of our past resides, acting as our tireless, unforgiving inner critic. Let's be honest about what this feels like in your day-to-day existence. It's spending an hour rewriting a 2-sentence email, terrified of a single typo that no one else would even notice. It's the brilliant idea for a book, a business, or a work of art that lives and dies in your mind because the vision in your head is so flawlessly perfect, you fear you can't possibly execute it without some fatal flaw. It's the inability to truly absorb a compliment because your inner critic immediately provides a footnote, a list of all the ways you could have done better, of all the things you missed. It is a life lived with a constant low-grade hum of inadequacy. But you must understand this. This pattern is not a personal failing. It is not a flaw in your character. It is a deeply ingrained psychological program, a survival strategy that you learned with exceptional skill long ago. It's a strategy that, at one point in your life, likely served to protect you. It helped you navigate a world where love, safety, or approval felt conditional. The tragedy is that this survival strategy has outlived its usefulness and now serves only to limit you. To dismantle it, we must first see it clearly. Imagine your mind as a courtroom. The id is pure, primal desire. It's the child within screaming, "I want pleasure and I want it now." It operates on impulse alone. The ego is the rational lawyer. It's your conscious self looking at the id's demands and at the external world, trying to negotiate a realistic path forward. Okay, the ego says, let's find a practical, safe way to get what you want. But the superego is the judge. And for the perfectionist, it's a harsh, severe, and often cruel judge. Its job is to enforce a moral and ethical code. But where does this judge get its law book? Who taught it what is right, what is wrong, what is good enough, and what is a failure? It gets it from our first and most powerful authority figures, our parents. The superego is the successful internalization of their rules, their expectations, their values, their praise, and most potently, their criticism. Think back. It's the A on a test that was met not with celebration, but with the question, why wasn't this an A+? It's the room you cleaned meticulously, only for a parent to point out the one small spot you missed. It's the constant, spoken or unspoken message that your worth was conditional upon your performance, your achievement, your flawlessness. This is the crucial step in the process. Your young brain, in a brilliant act of self-preservation, took that external voice of criticism and judgment and made it internal. The logic is simple and profound. If you can judge yourself first, if you can criticize yourself more harshly than they ever could, then you can anticipate their judgment and perhaps, just perhaps, avoid the pain of their disapproval. You become your own harshest critic to protect yourself from the critics outside. The problem is, that voice never left. The judge never left the bench. And now, it dictates your life from the inside long after you've left the home where it was born. And what is the true price of constantly obeying this inner judge? What is the real, tangible cost of flawlessness? It is burnout, a deep exhaustion of the soul from running on a treadmill that never stops. It is chronic anxiety, the constant fear of being found out as the imperfect human you actually are. It's the strained relationships with friends, partners, and colleagues who feel they can never live up to your impossible standards because, of course, you can't live up to them yourself. It is a life half-lived, a gallery of beautiful ideas and passions you never pursued because you were afraid you wouldn't be the best. The ultimate tragedy of the perfectionist is not that they fail to be perfect. It's that in the obsessive, all-consuming pursuit of a flawless life, they often fail to live a real, messy, authentic one. They trade joy for control and spontaneity for certainty. It is a terrible bargain. But what if that critical voice isn't you? What if it's just an echo, a psychological recording of a past authority figure playing on an endless loop in the halls of your mind? This realization is the turning point. It is the key that unlocks the cage. The path to freedom is not to kill the judge, to destroy the superego. That is impossible. The path is to stop believing it is the sole authority in your own mind. The path is to empower your ego. The solution lies in strengthening your conscious, rational self. It's about teaching your inner lawyer to finally stand up to the tyrannical judge. It is time for your ego to stop cowering and start presenting new evidence. It is time to fight for a more compassionate, more realistic, and more humane verdict. This path to self-authorship begins with a few core practices. The first step is simple, but not easy. Observation without judgment. When the voice of the inner critic begins its attack, your job is not to fight it or even to believe it. Your job is to simply notice it, as if you were a scientist observing a phenomenon. You label it. Ah, there is the superego. There is the echo of my father's impossible standards. There is my mother's anxiety about what others think. By simply labeling the voice, you create a space between it and your sense of self. You are no longer the voice. You are the one who hears the voice. This space is where your freedom begins. Second, you must begin to question its authority. The inner critic deals in absolutes. It speaks with unearned certainty. Your conscious self, your ego, must begin to cross-examine it. The voice says, if you make a mistake in this presentation, it will be a catastrophe. Your conscious self can now ask, is that really true? What is the evidence for that? What is the most likely outcome? Have I made mistakes before and survived? You are fact-checking your own internal programming. You are challenging the outdated laws in the judge's law book. And third, you must engage in the active practice of good enough. Perfectionism is a poison for which good enough is the antidote. This is a form of exposure therapy for the soul. Deliberately submit a project that is 85% perfect, hand in the report knowing that it's good but not flawless. Allow yourself to be a beginner at a new skill and embrace the clumsiness. Allow yourself to be human and then watch as the world does not end. Your catastrophic predictions will not come true. This is how you gather new, powerful evidence for your inner lawyer to present. This is how you prove to yourself that the judge's laws are obsolete. Be warned, this path is not easy. This work is not for the faint of heart. At first, self-acceptance will feel like laziness. Forgiving yourself for a mistake will feel like weakness. Letting go of that iron grip of control will feel like you are inviting failure. The inner critic, your superego, will scream louder, terrified of losing its position of power over you. It will tell you that without its constant vigilance, you will fall apart. Your entire nervous system is conditioned to seek the familiar, painful comfort of self-criticism. You are teaching your mind a new language, and its first impulse will be to resist. You must be prepared for this internal battle. In fact, you should welcome it. It is the undeniable sign that the work is happening. You are reforging neural pathways etched into your brain since childhood. It is the most difficult and most rewarding work you will ever do. Ultimately, this journey is about reclaiming your psychological sovereignty. It is about the slow, deliberate process of moving from being a curator of your parents' expectations to becoming the architect of your own values. It's about finally and completely understanding that your worth is not, and never was, tied to your performance. Your worth is inherent. It is absolute. It is not up for negotiation. Imagine, just for a moment, a life where you can start a new hobby and genuinely enjoy the process of being a beginner. Imagine receiving feedback, not as a judgment on your character, but as useful data for growth. Imagine a life where your dominant inner voice is not one of criticism, but of encouragement, of compassion, of a trusted ally. This is not a fantasy. It is the freedom that waits for you on the other side of perfectionism. If these explorations into the architecture of your mind resonate with you, ensure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future deep dives. The first step to disarming the inner critic is to expose its demands to the light. So, what is one impossible standard of perfection that you are now willing to challenge? Share your commitment in the comments below. Your declaration is a powerful first step and can inspire others on this path. Stop trying to be flawless. Start daring to be whole.